Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Michael from the Honest Youth Pastor YouTube channel. What you are about to watch is the last section, section 4, of a much longer podcast in which me and Rob talk about rest and whatnot from a pastoral's perspective on the Babbling Pastor podcast. If you've missed the first 3 parts, you can check those out below in case you missed on something, or next week the whole podcast will release all by itself and you can watch it all the way through. In this section, we talk about and give some advice for pastors that maybe are experiencing burnout, haven't done well in resting, and kind of what we would suggest happens in those sections. Now, if you are a pastor, hopefully you find this helpful. If you're a lay person, our hope is that you kind of get a glimpse into your pastor's brain and how they work, and maybe even be able to glean some ways to rest and plan out your weeks and your days for yourself as well. But let's get into it. So we've acknowledged, yes, pastors have a lot of stress on them. Many of them don't have some sort of built-in sort of schedule. A lot of them don't have boundaries set up. A lot of them clearly are, poised for burnout or leaving the ministry. Some of them are in good, healthy churches, but still sort of feel that and don't have a good structure set up. So let's end with this, right? So with pastors and then also with lay people, I think some of these are interchangeable. What is a good starting point? I've got some examples, but you clearly have some examples. If you were to talk to a pastor was to call you up today, they see this episode, they email you and say, hey man, where do I even start though? Because I'm getting calls all the time. I don't know what in the world where to even start. Because if I do, so-and-so is going to push back and I might not have a job and I got 2 kids and I got to feed them. Where do I start? What would be your advice to that guy?
Well, I think that on the one hand, every one of those situations is going to be a little bit different, right? So
That's fair.
is no matter what either of us say after this about this, it's going to be. You just have to take it with a grain of salt because your situation might not fit what we say. But on that note, I would say that without talking to anybody, the first thing that you have to do is stop answering your phone during certain times. And I'm not saying cut a whole half a day out if people aren't used to that, but you need to shut your phone off while you're with the Lord, right? Shut it off, because while I'm well, I don't want to preach about it, but that should just be obvious, right? When you are having your time with the Lord, and if nothing major is going, you don't have someone in the hospital who might die soon and those kinds of things. Obviously that's different, right? But when you're spending time with the Lord, spending time in his word just for you, shut that phone off. And what are they going to say to you? If somebody tried to get a hold of you, what are they going to say to you at that time? That's not going to, if they get really bent out of shape about that, is that not going to prove your point when you go to make the case that you need, that you need something to, so, I would start just by doing it a little bit, not, again, incrementally, right? If your church is used to you just popping the phone open every time somebody, thinks about calling you, you call them real quick, if that's what they're used to, then it's going to be a bigger deal if you just leave your phone at home and disappear for a whole day, right? But I would start incrementally, but just do it. And then when people begin, make those changes in your life yourself, because your church, you do not need your church's, your elders' permission to turn your phone off while you're doing devotions. When I word it like that, it sounds pretty elementary, right? It's really not, it's not that kind of thing. I think we treat this as a regular job too much sometimes as pastors. Oh, these people are my boss, so whatever they ask, I'll just do. And now I'm just in this, a difficult role and I get told what to do all the time. No, God is your boss. First. Okay. So I would start there by just doing it, whatever that looks like for you. Maybe you're in a situation where you could just like take half a day once a week and just start not answering your phone during that time. Not to be a jerk or anything, but just to set that time aside and take it for yourself and for your family or whatever you deem is needed there. But I think that this isn't something that we need to have permission for from the church. I would say like that there probably will come a time. So this is so I'm everything I say is coming out of like my elders, right? And my elders, my fellow elders at this church are, it's a healthy group of dudes, and so we do this together. We do this life together. Now I'm paid to set my time aside to do it full time. So we do it differently, but we do it together. They force me to do these things when I want to workaholic the thing, right? And so I'm from the outset, I'll say that like I'm in a really healthy, good situation. So it's easy for me to talk about in some respect, um, but you are going to need to have conversations with the leadership, right? Like, and depending on your situation, that might come naturally. That might come because, hey, you haven't been answering your phone and I've been getting calls instead or whatever. Um, uh, but, uh, but it might not come naturally. It might turn out that like you do that for a few weeks and nobody cares.
Yeah.
You
No.
won't
Yeah.
know until you do it, right?
Yeah. You thought. Yeah.
Like
You
you
thought
might,
they would.
yeah. And this is like tyranny on yourself that you're doing here. So it might turn out that they don't even realize or recognize that you've been doing this much. I mean, specifically if you're trying to return those calls in a a timely manner and actually still care about all the things, but while caring about you and your family and so I say like first just do it, just start doing it, and not in any announced way, um but just start doing it, and see what happens and then respond from there. You might need to make the case to your elders, which is unfortunate, but that might need to happen. um but you don't know until you've done it and tried, and I think like that's maybe a good experimental way to just start the ball rolling a little bit and see what this might look like for you. And your like the rhythm that I described is just mine, and I'm not perfect at it. Like I don't want to seem like that kind of robot, right? Like I'm not. I miss my Fridays sometimes and do things instead. And my mornings I get calls. I mean I do stuff. So um uh, it's not perfect, but it is a framework that I try and follow. But you got to start somewhere, and so I think that that's probably the easiest place to start, at least in my view of the kind of things that come my way. If I weren't living like that and I needed to start, that would be the easiest place for me to begin. It would be just select some times and stop answering my phone. um so and so calls 4 times in a row. Oh, well, crap might be going down, so you need to get on the phone, right? But by and large, what you'll find out is, I mean, it could have waited 30 minutes, or it could have waited 2 hours or whatever. It's not going to kill anybody. So anyway, that's
No.
the
Yeah.
numero
No.
uno. That's where I'd start.
Yeah, no. So yeah, turn off your phone, have those conversations, make the necessary changes, and then be flexible when needed with your schedule. I think is really good. The only thing on the layperson side of it, I think, and this would probably apply as well to the pastoral side, is have those conversations with, um, have regular conversations with your spouse, if you have one, in regards to what is needed and what's not needed to be done. Like, hey, what are we doing this week? What are we doing today? What does the schedule look like? What do I need to cut out, or what needs to happen there? And I think one of the things, speaking just from probably on a pastoral side, is protecting your wife from that same onslaught. There's a lot of pastors that I know that have set up boundaries to where, people try to call him and they can't get a hold of him. So the next person they blow up their phone of is his wife. And so he puts an end to that, because she's not the person you're calling just because I don't answer the phone. That's not how that works. And so having those boundaries set up, and then also setting up what is, from like a layperson standpoint as well, which then of course goes into a pastoral standpoint, but from a layperson standpoint, what does our week look like? There's so many people that I think operate in chaos, that when you just don't know what's going to happen, because your life is just constant chaos. And so having that, that schedule set up, or if, again, knowing your personality is the next part of it. Knowing your schedule, but knowing your personality. If you let me, I will work myself to death, because that's my personality. So knowing your personality and saying, hey, what do I need to back off on and not allow myself to fall into, because I will if I don't stop myself. And so I'm that person you're talking about in regards to, like, I feel like I need to return your call or text right away as soon as you get with me, and knowing that about myself and saying, no, I don't. Just let it sit there for a second and I'll get back to it. I also very anxious. So if things don't go according to schedule, I tend to freak out, and learning that about myself and knowing that it's not the end of the world. It's not. It's fine. We'll figure it out. And so for me, having that schedule built in and then being okay with being flexible with it is great. And this is where I think, again, this is very important from a pastoral standpoint too, but from a layperson standpoint, I cannot tell you, if you are in a relationship, especially if you're single, you kind of control your own schedule a lot, and you have a lot more, say over that. But if you're in a relationship, and especially if you're married, having that communication open with your spouse about your schedule and about what needs to happen is incredibly important. If you want to wreck your marriage or be burnout and mad at each other all the time, don't have that communication about schedule. Don't have that communication about when you need a break. Don't have that communication about what's going on. Hey, I'll see you when you come for counseling about divorce, because I'm going to see you. And so one of those things that is so important is having that communication open, where you say, hey, I'm at my limit. Like we have to redo something, because I cannot do this. And so having those conversations and being comfortable enough to have those conversations are so important. There's lots of times where, Kristin will say something to me, or I'll say something to her. Like, this either has to be rescheduled, or we're just not going to be able to do this. Like, I cannot mentally or emotionally or physically take this right now. Like, something's got to give. Or going to them and having that honest conversation and saying, hey, I can't, but I need you to. And again, we could get into this whole Ephesians 5 thing about this whole marriage situation. We're not going to, but having that relationship in which you're willing to take on your spouse's, certain things that they need you to do, and being flexible and okay with that. And I think, again, we could talk about, the pastoral ministry. There's a whole part of that, I'm sure. But one, knowing who you are and how you react to situations. Two, setting up a schedule and being flexible with it. And if you're in a marriage, having that work well. Because here's the thing, most in marriages, most of the time there's a chaotic person and an organized person, and those people are trying to live together. And so having a system in which the chaos and the organization can work and the communication does happen, and that allows you to have that rest, to have that, that peace in weeks and days and months and years when a lot of things are going on. And so when we're talking about rest, I know we've talked a lot about the pastoral part of it, and there's a huge part of that, but even underlying the pastoral part is this: communicate, delegate, set a schedule, be flexible with it. But if you're not having those conversations, like we talked about before, the pastor having the conversations with the congregation, setting up those boundaries, if you're not doing that on a personal family level, you are going to fail right away. And so I think the biggest takeaways for me in this conversation, if somebody listening, is have that open line of communication, whether it be the pastor and the congregation or the family together. Set boundaries, set a schedule, follow it as close as you can, and be flexible when needed. But if you're not having that communication and that schedule, you're doomed. You're going to fail. You are. You're going to get burnt out because something's not going to get done, and you're going to give up. You're muted.
Yeah, I know. I'm not. I usually don't do that, so I'm
I'm
forgetting today. Yeah, I I think that is all really good. The thing is, God, like you said in the beginning of the whole thing, God instituted rest in the beginning of it all. And no matter how a person theologically comes out when it comes to Sabbatarian or is the Christian Sabbath Sunday, is it the Lord's Day, is the Sabbath still Saturday? Some people go down that, and or are we just in a perpetual state of rest in Christ? And that's the there are different ways that people think about that, but no matter how you think about that, the fact that God has instituted rest is a fact, and that he has done it intentionally because he created creatures that need to rest. um and I think that he communicates that emphatically because he doesn't need to rest, and he did, as an example. So if God, who doesn't need to rest, who is all powerful and just spoke and the world existed, matter didn't exist and now it did. If he finished all of his creative work on the sixth day and rested on the seventh as an example to us, then it seems to me that this should be a much bigger priority for us than we make it out to be. I don't know if you have you ever gone to Europe anywhere?
No, I have not.
Okay, so I went on a mission trip to Serbia, right? I'm not going to count like passing through countries to go fight in a war. That doesn't count. But to actually spend the time in Serbia, and I hear from people all the time that who visit like other places too, in the uh, older part of the world.
The old country.
Yeah, right. Yeah, the old country. I hear from people all the time who visit those places, and it was my experience too in Serbia that there is just a different pace, man. I mean, those people have it a lot more figured out than we do. I'm not saying that we need to schedule in siestas. Not saying that we need to work a few hours in the morning and then a few hours in the evening and take midday to just chill and take a nap and whatever. Like, but I think people there, like by and large, the culture there is kind of a well, I wanted to get this one thing done today. And if that happens, awesome. And I mean, stuff came up and it didn't happen. Whatever. Like, I mean, you wouldn't want to live with that attitude all the time, or nothing would ever get done in your life, right? But I think that there's a balance that we do not have in America, and we have. God help us. We worship our children and their sports. We um so busy. And one of the things that my sons need to know is that my life and their life does not need to revolve around them. That's one of the things they need to be taught by example, like in word and deed, right? And so, but like, man, one of the big issues that we have um, in our nation, culturally, is that we really are bad at this. We really are bad at being busy and never saying no to things. And I've got to take this in, and I've got to take that in. I've got to so and so invited me, I have to go. Like, we are really bad at that, and we've we've got to just chill. I mean, understand that you're finite, that there are only so many hours, and it's better to be involved in 2 or 3 things that are really important and weighty and do them well, than to be involved in 418 things for the sake of not missing anything and sucking at all of it, and like, those are the options. Like, that's it. It's almost like there's nowhere in between. So
Yeah. Well, and I'll end with this. So there are going to be people that possibly listen to this that feel like they're incredibly busy, everything's super chaotic, and they don't know how to change it. So been there before, right? There's probably people that are in those situations. The only thing I can tell you, like you said before, as far as when we gave the advice to the pastors in general, is that take this with a grain of salt. Your life's way different than mine. But if you find yourself there, it's a lot easier for you to sit down and make a plan on how to make it not this way than to be forced into that by burnout. You're going to miss a lot of stuff by not planning to do it. So make sure you sit down, especially if you have a spouse, and sit down and say, okay, what does our life look like right now? What are the things we have to do? What are the things we want to prioritize? And what are the things we need to cut out? Like, what are the things we just have to say no to? Because if we do these things, we're not going to have enough rest. We're not going to be the parents we need to be. We're not going to be the spouses we need to be. What can we do to make this better and not just be a slave to the system that we've put ourselves in? I think what you said before was great. Boo-hoo, have a pity party, great, recognize it, change it. Like, you can sit there all day and cry about it, but if you don't have a plan for tomorrow, then you're just going to do the same thing tomorrow. So figure out what are the things that are causing this stress. If it's that job, okay, well, there's a lot of jobs. What does it mean to find another one then? Like, what does that look like? Can't find another job? Okay, fine. What does it mean to restructure our life so that this isn't the thing that's sucking the life out of me all of the time? What are the things that we can do if we can't get another job to structure away? So just the best thing is communicate and make a plan. And I just want to say that. Make sure that you have those. You're taking God's command, rest, and taking it seriously and structuring your life in that way. And that is, and I'll say this, that is going to require you, like you've already said, Rob, to say no to some things. So you're probably going to have to grow a backbone and figure that out. And that's not going to be easy for a lot of people, but you're going to have to say yes to a lot of things, no to other things, so that I can obey what God has told me to do, which is rest and worship Him, so that I can live a life that gives me the opportunity to do the things He's commanded me to do, like take care of my family, tell other people about Him, have this balanced life that He's created for me, that this other thing that I'm involved in is sucking away slowly, day by day, and making that plan to do that. So whether that be a pastor or a lay person, that applies either way. So that's what I got for you.
Psalm 131 says, O Yahweh, my heart is not exalted, and my eyes are not raised high, and I do not involve myself in great matters, or in matters too marvelous for me. Surely I have soothed and quieted my soul like a weaned child with his mother. Like a weaned child is my soul within me. O Israel, wait for Yahweh from now until forever. That should be how we live.
Of course, the pastor brings in the pastor verse. No, I love it.
Oh, now I'm tired and oppressed.
Good deal. All right, well, guys, and so hopefully that's helpful. Communicate, rest, build your life around that, and we'll talk to you next time. Hey guys, you made it to the end. Thank you so much for watching all the way through. And if you did find that helpful, make sure you leave a like. And if there was something you agreed or disagreed with, make sure you leave a comment in the section below. Now, if you're not subscribed, I'm not sure why you're not, and you're interested in more conversations like this between me and Rob, we do a weekly sectioned podcast called the Babbling Pastor Podcast, and you can subscribe to be notified when that comes out. And I'll talk to you next time.